Sparta Prague had won the affections of the city's working class, while Slavia had attracted the more literary set in the capital. By the mid-1920s, footballers from all over Europe were being enticed to play for them as the two struggled for supremacy before huge crowds.
Já sám si pamatuju, že v Budějovicích v jedné hospodě, když Sparta prohrála nebo Slavie prohrála, tak vždycky ta strana, která vyhrála, postavila té druhé straně rakev, k tomu svíčky, přeto se napsalo prostě zemřela v požehnaném věku AC Sparta nebo SK Slavia. A dokonce se stávalo, že přišel někdy i kněz, aby prostě tomu obřadu smutečnímu dal prostě takovou, řekněme, aby to opravdu vypadalo jako pohřeb, jako rozloučení smuteční.
By the mid-1920s, the idea of a European Cup for clubs was gaining strength, thanks largely to the efforts of Hugo Meisel. In 1927, it became a reality when Sparta Prague met Rapid Vienna in the first final of the Mitropa Cup. The present European Cup may date from 1955, but the very first European champions were not Real Madrid but Sparta, who won this final. Over the following 12 years, the Mitropa Cup captured the imagination of mainland Europe.
No to byla vlastně jediná velká mezinárodní klubová soutěž. Znova opakuji, že to byl vlastně Liga mistrů, pohár mistrů a pohár UEFA, až v tom hráli třeba 3 až 4 mužstva z každé země. Pravidelně Itálie, Rakousko, Jugoslávie, Československo, Švýcarsko. Ty hráli úplně pravidelně.
Before the river Danube winds its way into Croatia, it passes through Budapest, a city at the heart of football's Danubian legend. Here too, inter-ethnic rivalries help take football to a higher plane. The predominantly Jewish club MTK Budapest won 10 titles in a row between 1914 and 1925, coached by Jimmy Hogan. The Hungarians were famous for their skillful short-passing game. In 1928, Ferencváros, the club of the German community, won not only the Hungarian Championship and Cup, but also the Mitropa Cup, the first of only 6 clubs to do the fabled treble of League, Cup and European Cup. If the heart of the Danubian legend rests in Budapest, then the soul lies 250 kilometers upstream in the city of Vienna. It was here that this legend was born and where it reached its zenith. 1920s Vienna was a hotbed of political intrigue. The Social Democrats of Red Vienna created a sports movement based on the amateur ethic that they hoped would bolster working-class solidarity. They were skeptical of big clubs like Rapid, who, although working class in origins, played in what the Social Democrats perceived as a bourgeoisie league. They were fighting a losing battle. In 1920, Austria became the first country outside of Britain to accept professionalism, as football became a major spectator sport. 3 years later, a crowd estimated at 100,000 watched the Italy-Austria match in Vienna, a continental record that stood until after the Second World War. Football in Central Europe was rapidly approaching the standard of the British Isles. By 1931, it was arguably as good, and the legend of the Austrian wonder team was born that year, after Scotland were beaten 5-0.
Anglie, Rakousko, Československo a Maďarsko, Ungarn. Tak to byly podle mýho názoru tenkrát nejlepší tým, žádný Švédsko nebo tohle, to všechno to neexistovalo.
The wonder team was the creation of Hugo Meisel, who, as well as running the Austrian Football Association, was the team's coach.
Die beiden Kapitäne, der Ungar Sarosi und der Österreicher Naus, begrüßen Sie.
From 1931, Austria were beaten just twice in the next 3 years, and they were unlucky to lose one of those to England in London in 1932. Indeed, that heroic defeat only added to the mystique that grew up around the Wonder Team. Like Hungary and Czechoslovakia, the Austrians relied on sublime skills learnt on the street, shunning the more physical aspects of the game. But therein lay its downfall, a downfall that was to test the friendship of Meisel and Pozzo to the limit. If the 1920s had belonged to the Danubian school, then the 1930s were the domain of a nation that lay to the south of the Central European powers, Italy.
Quando dominammo il mare. Roma non poté arrivare all'impero prima di aver schiacciato la potenza marittima di Cartagine.
More than any leader of the time, Mussolini realized the political value of sport. In 1929, Vittorio Pozzo became Italian coach for the third time. Over the course of the next decade, the Italians swept all before them.
Il fascismo investe nello sport, investe nella attività fisica, investe nel cercare di creare uomini forti in cui lo sport diventava il podromo della guerra o della possibilità di partecipare a attività più importanti.
Pozzo ha usato Mussolini perché il fascismo dava anche questa carica nazionalista. Però mio padre era un patriota più che un nazionalista, c'è una differenza, eh? Il nazionalista considera nemici gli altri, il patriota fa tutto il possibile per il proprio paese, però sa che gli altri hanno il diritto di fare quello che facciamo noi.
A competition for the national teams of Europe had been introduced in 1927 at the same time as the Mitropa Cup. The new International Cup, the forerunner of the current European Championship, was also the brainchild of Hugo Meisel. In 1930, Italy became the first European champions. On the train journey back home, having won the cup in Budapest, Pozzo dropped it, chipping off a small fragment.
Prende questo piccolo frammento, accuratamente lo avvolge in ovatta e se lo mette in tasca. Porta la Coppa in Italia, nessuno sa di questo scheggia che evidentemente era, quando racconta lui nel libro, dice che questa scheggia se la mise in tasca e che la teneva come amuleto e dice non per niente mi ha portato anche fortuna e in qualcosa posso credere, non per niente questa scheggia mi ha seguito nel campionato del mondo del 34, nelle Olimpiadi del 36, nel campionato del mondo del 38.
Italy's first national league kicked off in 1929 and Mussolini was often seen at matches, especially those involving Lazio. As Serie A grew in wealth and importance, it became home to numerous foreign stars, like the top scorer at the first World Cup in 1930, Guillermo Stabile from Argentina. 4 months later, he made his debut in this match between Lazio and Genoa, one of just over 100 foreigners to appear in the league in the 1930s. Some Argentines, Brazilians and Uruguayans of Italian descent even played for the national team. Football gave Mussolini a profile, and he used it to good effect.